All right, this is a sub two slash installment sale deal. Installment sale meaning that we have structured a down payment, but we did make payments over time, even though we closed on it and took title. I know some of the associates have seen this deal before, but there are so many nuances. So I do encourage you to continue to stick around and listen for those or ask questions, because these types of deals are going to be more and more prevalent as forbearance comes to a head, and because you're going to see this seller was in arrears and we were able to catch them up and to gain massive amount of equity in this deal and really solve their challenge. So here we go. The source was an expired listing. To tell the story, Nick and I were down in, I think it was Nick, Chris, and I actually, we were down in Texas in the middle of the summer for no reason. Now, the reason was because we were down there at Note School with Eddie Speed, and we got invited to one of their private sessions with some, not only, we were the only top people in the creative financing world there, but with massive wholesalers and things of that nature. So we got invited to go down there, and this was the only lady that I was speaking to while we were down there. So the story goes, I spoke with her and then I left. And then she went ahead and we started this email communication back and forth, and she ended up talking herself way down on this deal because I was not responding, so I knew that there was some massive amount of motivation. Now, the husband and wife, they went ahead and they purchased this property about 2 years prior. They went ahead and fixed it up using credit cards from Home Depot, and then they decided to get a divorce. The property title was held in both the buyer and we're holding both the husband and wife's name, but the mortgage was only in the wife's name. So this is how we were able to craft this deal up. We bought it for $355,941. That was the exact mortgage balance, plus I believe we paid him about $7,500, and we'll go through these numbers here as far as equity or installment. We sold the property for $425,000. So the original house was on the market at $425,000 as an expired listing. As I said, I communicated with the seller and said, hey, based on your comps, what's the least you're willing to take? And I left that conversation for about, 4 or 5 days, and I watched her email thread go through, and she talked herself down from I needed like $420 all the way to I just needed enough money to pay off the credit cards. Here's we continue through this progress. So we ended up selling this property for $425,000 to a group of tenant, or to a husband and wife, on a lease purchase. And because we own this property subject to the existing financing, we do not have an end date on this property, meaning we have no date in mind in which we need to sell off this loan or need to pay off this loan. Nick, do you want to just talk briefly about who the buyers were, if you, as far as
sure,
that, do you remember?
Yeah, from what I can recall for this one, she had, the wife was the breadwinner, was the sole income earner really for the property. And the reason that they weren't able to get their own loan is because she had accumulated so much student loan debt in order going to law school and everything like that. This has changed a number of times, but now she is a practicing attorney, and she's making even more money now than when we originally did the deal with her a couple of years ago, or a year and a half ago. So she's in there. We have an option we told her that once the down payment gets over, I believe we said in her case, 15% over that, then we could enter into the conversation of talk about owner financing the property to her, but we wouldn't go into that conversation until the deposit got until at least at 15%. And with every one of these deals, it's totally different. So depending on what your goals are for the property and what you're looking to achieve out of it, some are 15%, some are a little less than 15%, whereas the majority of the homes that we do this now on, we tell buyers that we won't even consider entering a conversation or talking about it until their deposit gets to 20%. So it's really something that has evolved.
Let's jump into the payday. So payday one, day one, Nick, if I can recall, is we accepted, I think it was $31,000 up front, and then it was 2 payments of $5,000, correct? In her initial LOI?
That sounds accurate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Payday two, we are making the monthly payment to the bank of 2024. That's all in PITI. We are collecting $24.97 per month. And so our original agreement was actually a 29-month term because our thought process was to do this type of owner financing. I know that she's been in the property now for a couple of years. So if you look at our cash flow thus far, it's just under 14,000. Let's look at our payday three. We increased the premium on the house of 69,000. We've collected a principal pay down. It's 569 a month. So 569 times 30 months. I think it's like 18 grand. We already collected a payday number one of 41,000. And so that brings our back end cash out just in the 29 months to 28,628. The property was in arrears, so there was a time is of the essence, meaning like this lady needed help and they needed help fast because once they went into that third month, then they were going to start going into that pre-foreclosure process. She already knew it, so she was one of her major sticking points was that we need to help her. We need to help her fast. So we did catch up that $4,100 in arrears, and we actually structured this as a lease purchase right off the bat and filed the notice of option while we were waiting to go close on the property. We didn't have to do that, but because we were already putting down $4,100, we wanted to go through that process right away without having to pay closing costs. And then what we ended up doing is, as soon as inspection and everything went through, we went ahead and we went and closed on the property. We committed to that deal. Do I suggest day one that you commit to deals? I don't, but especially if you're out there on your own. But if you end up joining our community, then of course I highly recommend that you go ahead and commit to some of these deals because of the amount of money that you're going to see that's in this deal just in 29 months. So if you add up all these paydays, plus you subtract the arrears, we had a total profit of almost $80,000 just in the 29 months. So here, the full intent on our end is to go ahead and sell this property on owner financing to that buyer, which means that this deal is at least going to be 6 figures. And I mentioned my son and daughter earlier, but this deal could be potentially paying them when they head off to high school and college. So that's really cool when you talk about generational wealth here. All right. And
wait a minute. A couple things about that I'm just remembering while you're talking about this is typically, and I think it's important for everyone to know, I'm going to be diving into this a little bit more. One of the things that I'm going to be covering, we are going to be able to add the taxes in at the buyer's meeting for the most part to get the buyer or the tenant acting and behaving more of a buyer. So that's why we're able to get the higher monthly payment because at the buyer's meeting, we're going to add the taxes in because the majority of our loans today, the majority of our loan products out there do include taxes as a part of that payment. Secondly, when it comes to the purchase price and us being able to charge a premium, there isn't necessarily a set formula every single time, but in the case like this, where the property was on the market previously with a realtor at $425, it's a lot easier for us than to put it back on the market as rent to own at that same price because that has already been justified in the market. Even though it didn't sell, it already got traction and already got some buyers, and it's known out there that that's the price.
Yeah, as you can see, there's a brief error in that slide. It's $569 principal pay down per month. So if you multiply that by the 29 months, it's $16,501 is what the principal pay down was on that deal on that 29 months. Oh, there was some additional questions that keep propping up. Well, Ross, I was waiting for this question to pop up. Subject twos trigger the due on sales clause from the mortgage company. How do you get around that? Well, Ross, we've done hundreds of these deals and have been in a community of people in which have done thousands of these deals. We actually had a friend of ours that's done 550 of these, and then another person we connected with similar, and they have not had a single due on sales clause called. Now, it does not mean that they can't get called. We just have not seen it. If what we've discovered is that banks are not in the business of collecting homes. It's actually rather expensive for them. They're in the business of collecting interest. So if you follow the checklist in the system properly, which we've done numerous YouTube videos on, you should not trigger a due on sales clause. Plus, there's other ways. I am not an attorney. Let me say it this way. I'm not an attorney. This has been our experience. Again, it doesn't mean that it could not happen. It just means that we have not seen it happen, and it tends to be very unlikely if you're following the system correctly. Plus, there's other ways, and we just won't have time to get into it now. There's other ways in order to purchase the property via trust and continue to add layers so that way it makes it even less likely that that will happen. Now, there are other techniques. For example, our friend of ours that passed away, which was original High Six member Don, his attorney said to him, hey, there's some local banks that are calling loans due. What I suggest is go ahead and we buy these properties contract for deed. That way we're putting you in a better position. So again, speak with your attorney based on the area and based on what's happening locally, and then make your best adjustment that way. But there's no reason why you shouldn't be buying these types of deals.